What's up, everyone? Harbinger here, and Overwatch 2, one of the most criminally destroyed IPs, I would say, in gaming history. Like, one of the most destroyed IPs up there. The game had so much promise when it released in 2016, had its own esports league, and everything came crashing down over time. So now we have Overwatch 2, which has been a disaster in terms of a PR perspective, but in terms of actual game and players, it's been a pretty good ride. I mean, this is actually pretty decent numbers considering that the game canceled the P versus E mode, made into like a money grabbing free to play game that basically charges you for skins that were once free, and it's one of the worst rated games for Steam. But when you're pulling these numbers, despite being the worst rated game on Steam, the executives are going to be happy about that. Bobby Kotick can buy his next yacht. So we have this entire thing that's happening, and a lot of players are looking through the lens of nostalgia, as most would once something they love ends up in a state like this. So a lot of people are asking about the 6 versus 6 returning. Now, if you don't know, the original Overwatch featured 6 versus 6 combat. Now, this is my gameplay, where you can see I've played Overwatch for a very, very long time since the release of this game. So I would say I have a good idea of how the game has evolved over time, but originally it was 6 versus 6. Over time, they added more heroes, which caused major balancing issues as they had to rebalance the entire game for the new additions such as Ana, Baptiste, who else did they add? Orisa. So many heroes they added to the game, and they just had to keep balancing them out. And the best way to combat this was simply to remove one of the players within the 6 versus 6 and turn it into a 5 versus 5, which a lot of people, especially the pros, were stating, yeah, this kind of fixed a lot of the issues. They did revamp the game a lot, put in more, defensive properties when it came to tanks and re-evaluating what they can do, but a lot of people are asking for the 6 versus 6 to return. So this comes from Decentro. Overwatch 2 launched with some major gameplay changes from the original, with the biggest by far being the removal of 2 CP and the switch from 6 versus 6 to 5 versus 5 with 1 tank. For many players, Overwatch 1 had a lot more focus on team play with the extra tank, while Overwatch 2 is more like a solo carry, especially considering there are less shields in the sequel. I would argue that's a really good thing, because if you've ever watched Overwatch 1 gameplay, the original 6 versus 6, it was largely a shield shooter. Basically, they would just choose the tanks with the best shield and just shoot shields 99% of the time. Like, that's just what they did, and it was very boring to watch. So, yeah, they kind of had to shift away from that, because no one's going to watch just people putting up shields and people having to either shoot through the shields until it diminishes, or having to go around it just to land a hit. Not everyone has been a fan of these changes. However, with the discussion raging on, Overwatch 2's Gerald Neese joined in to share his thoughts on the 6 vs 6 better. Overwatch 2 dev dismisses demands for 6 vs 6 to come back in a thread on Twitter/X. God. Overwatch 2 content creator SVB brought up the 6 vs 6 versus 5 vs 5 debate and decided to invite guests on the podcast to settle things, as fans and streamers chimed in their 2 cents. DPS player Barcode hit back at those who want the game to revert back to 6 vs 6. I hear you're saying here in the discussion 6 vs 6 comes up, so I think it's time to have it out properly on the podcast and settle it. Who should be the advocates for 6 vs 6 supremacy, and who should be the staunch defenders of 5 vs 5 being better? Now, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. I think 5 vs 5 is better in terms of competitive play, like ranked and all that. I think it's way better. But for, social play, unranked, people just having fun, I think 6 vs 6 is a lot more fun. You got more players, more havoc, more chaos happening. And I believe in unranked, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, you don't need to follow the formula. Like, anyone can pick any character they want. It's not in ranked where you have 1 tank, 2 healers, 2 DPS. If I'm wrong about that, tell me, because I haven't played Overwatch in like a week, and they usually, where live service games, end up putting out a new patch almost every other day nowadays. People who want 6 vs 6 are some of the same MFers who want 2 CP back, she wrote. This attracted the attention of Overwatch 2 executive producer Jared Nisses, who replied, "Nostalgia is a powerful drug." And here's a tweet. He stated that, honestly, he's not wrong. A lot of people, when they feel like they hate something, will revert back to the original and say that the original was better in a lot of ways. I remember this with Gears of War. When Gears of War 2 launched, a lot of people were unhappy with the new changes that they put into the game, such as charging. You can now shoot people as they charge to slow them down. Some balancing issues with the Gnasher and the Lancer. And the Hammer Burst, the rapid fire Hammer Burst, which made the Lancer completely obsolete. You would just have to pick the Hammer Burst and learn how to pull the trigger quick enough. So a lot of people would say Gears of War 1 was superior and go and play the competitive mode for that game. Until Gears 3 came out and basically, in my opinion, was the best version of the Gears of War multiplayer system. But I don't know, that's a matter of opinion. I still think Gears of War 3 was the best competitive one. The remarks simply imply that NIS and potentially others on the Overwatch 2 team have no plans of getting rid of 5 vs 5 anytime soon, and believe that those who are fond of 6 vs 6 is looking back in it through rose-tinted glasses. I kind of agree with that. Like I said, I've played Overwatch for a very long time. In fact, I've played it since the beta. I actually have early beta gameplay here, as you can see here, of how it used to look. That's me dead. But yeah, I played this game for a very, very long time, and it could be nostalgia glasses. You can see how crappy I was at this game, but I do agree with that people tend to remember fondly things that they don't fully remember. Like, it's just not member berries. While this may be bad news for those hopeful that 6 vs 6 might come back, players can still access 6 vs 6 mode in the workshop and see if Overwatch 1 really did have it right. Oh, so they can access it. So you can just play 6 vs 6 on the workshop. They can also do an event where players can engage in 6 vs 6 gameplay, and if it's a good mode, put it into the game as like a social event. Like, I think that would be a great option to just appease both players. But, you know, there are going to be players who are like, we want the 6 vs 6 for ranked play. And I would argue that would be the worst mistake in history. Because, like I stated, when they came out with all the heroes after the end of Overwatch 1, it was just so poorly balanced that you really had to adhere to very specific team balance and composure in order to win, especially if you played rank. If you didn't adhere to these strict regulations, because these were the teams that were the GOATs, you were guaranteed to lose. So I'm sure in 5 vs 5 they still have the same systems of what players are the best. For example, I've heard that Reinhardt is the crappiest hero to choose from when it comes to ranked. I heard from Flats, he might have changed his opinion. Again, patches do change things, but overall, I don't think 6 vs 6 is going to come back in a competitive way. It's going to come back probably in a social way just to appease fans, but not in a competitive way. And right now, Overwatch 2 has become more or less like I would say it's become a skeleton crew of its once glorified self. Like, they're trying to cancel the Overwatch League. Competitive players are moving away from the game because of all the broken promises. And mostly the people who are still playing right now, I would say, are mostly casuals. I've also heard and seen that Blizzard's anti-cheat is very, very garbage, because I'm sure a lot of us have seen what's happening with World of Warcraft right now. If you haven't, literally just type in World of Warcraft cheater and look up any video that has been posted in the last year. It's very rampant, and that's a game you have to pay for to play. Yeah, there's a free-to-play trial, but if you want to access the full game, you need to pay the subscription service. And this is a fully free game, so all the person has to do if they cheat is just create a new account and just, you know, keep doing the same thing. At least with Overwatch 1, you had the protection of a buy-in price. You still had to pay for the game, but with free-to-play games, it's a lot more rampant. And again, I've watched like Emog, Flats, like they sometimes appear on my recommendation for cheaters. It's very entertaining content, and you see these people don't hide it. They're very blatant. Like, it's just a switch that comes on and you're like, okay, I'm doing terribly. I never get cheaters. I don't get why they do it. It's a video game, and if you're cheating at a video game, I feel like you've hit rock bottom in life. But I just think that a lot of these numbers are because the game is easy to access, popular. It's still popular. Like, almost everyone knows what Overwatch is. It's easy to play. Anyone can pick up the game and find someone they enjoy to play as and just play as them. And then there's also cheaters who are trying to make a career out of Overwatch, but they're not that great, so they try and cheat and then hide that. And yeah, I just see that Overwatch is just going to be one of those games where they're just going to over monetize it to the point that it becomes nothing but a shell of its former self. And if, again, you don't believe me, look at all the games that have been released in Blizzard's catalog since the veteran developers have left. Look what happened to Diablo. Look what happened to Warcraft. World of Warcraft is doing better with the Dragonflight expansion, but if you play hardcore or classic WoW, it's full of cheaters, bot programs, and like I saw this YouTuber named Animus, AZMOS. He showcased how if you like harvest Black Lotus, which is a rare material in World of Warcraft, like the bots will report you, and since everything is on automation, you automatically get banned. And it's just such a dire state, and I feel like that's going to happen here as well. Anyway, tell me what you think. Do you think 6 versus 6 is going to make a return? Do you think Overwatch is on its last legs? I don't think it is. I think it's going to remain relatively steady in the way that it is. And what do you think the future of this game is? I've been playing it since 2016. I kind of got off the game, but I still think that this game is going to remain steady over the years because of its colorful appearance. But I'd like to hear other people's opinions. That's it from me. Like, subscribe if you want, dislike it if you dislike it. That's me, signing out. Goodbye.